On the 6th of April 1965, I was born. I came into the world. My mother was Mary Elizabeth McCormack Mooney, and my father was Terence Anthony Mooney. I was born in Sheffield, in South Yorkshire, but of ethnically pure Irish parents. So I'm pure Celtic. Well, probably about 5% South Yorkshire, apparently, according to Ancestry.com. But I'm making this video today to talk about wisdom that I have gleaned from the life journey that I want to share with you, and which I feel is emerging from the deepest centre of my own being, which Thomas Merton talked about, that part of us that cannot be touched by evil, sin, or by the, in a sense, the stupidity of the human mind. It's beyond that, and that beyond thing, whatever we would call it, is sometimes called the true self, or the light of the Holy Spirit, or the Christ, or Buddha nature, or pure Brahma, whatever name we give it, but it's the true self within. And I've been very lucky recently in studying a few things that have made me realize how often we are in touch with the true self without even realizing it, when we're in those moments of deep connection with peace and a sense of serenity and just knowing. We get there and we know it and we feel it and we experience it, and then we act from that. I have a great debt of gratitude to all the clients that I've worked with over the past probably about 30 odd years, as a social worker, then as a psychotherapist, and more latterly as a chaplain, and as a psychotherapist as well. I do both roles still. Thousands upon thousands of hours sitting with people in grief, in sadness, in joy, preparing to face the end of life, and trying to make sense of the whole meaning of their life before the eventual transition out of this world into the celestial realm beyond here. And so these people I owe a huge debt of gratitude to, because they taught me how to be still enough in the role of listening to allow my true self to come forth. So the exposure to the inner light in me was very much facilitated by having to be fully present with clients who are in high levels of distress and trauma. You know, sometimes the most horrendous trauma, I think, when people are coming near the end of life, all the horrible stuff that may have happened to them in the course of their life that they've managed to bury starts to come up. And it's often the privilege of counsellors, psychotherapists, psychologists, social workers, chaplains, people, nurses, anyone, doesn't really matter, anyone that's able to sit and listen, that it is a huge privilege to be able to do that. But it's also something that's, I believe, if we do it with an open heart and listening ears and listening heart, it actually starts to spiritually evolve us. It exposes us to the true light of being, if the intention is to listen and to be present with. Very recently, I did some training in a psychotherapy called Internal Family Systems. And Internal Family Systems premises itself on the idea that we are many selves inside. It's not a new concept, it's an old concept from other areas of psychoanalytic psychotherapy, but Internal Family Systems, IFS, is a much more in-depth and reflective process on the many conversational selves within us that dialogue with each other and dialogue with the external world. And part of the wisdom of IFS is that there is a true self, and that when the therapist is in that true self, that they enable the client to come into contact with their true self. And it's within that process the healing happens. It's not the clever gimmicky interventions, or how good you are at maybe accessing the unconscious of the other, or using fancy CBT techniques or whatever. It really is the deep intention and the deep authentic desire of the therapist to be present with the client in authentic love. And when we're in those moments, we are in moments of prayer. They are real prayer, they're real meditation. The sister, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, said that she had always found meditation throughout her life very difficult, but she was able to enter into transpersonal states of consciousness because she sat at the bedside of patients for thousands of hours, listening to their stories and being in a state of complete mindful presence with them. And so I think that she was really revealing something to us about what happens when we listen with depth and clarity and without agenda to another human being, that we evolve, that somehow our true self and the true self of the other emerges. And what I found in my work with, particularly with older people as they're coming near the end of life, is that we're in that state when they're trying to either make sense of everything that's happened or be consumed potentially by trauma and despair, that when you as the person working with that person, whatever your profession, or if you're not in a profession, you're just a member of the family or a good friend, when you can sit authentically in that space of nothingness, emptiness, that the emptiness is not empty, the emptiness is full, but it's not full of ego, it's full of light. And so what will happen when we sit in that place with the other, very often how we need to respond will emerge. How we need to not respond will emerge. Who we need to be, and I mean being in that moment, will emerge. And in that merging of yourself and their self, the truly miraculous can happen and the truly transformative can happen. I'm sharing this not because I want to say, oh, how wonderful, look what I can do. This is something we can all do. But what I want to do is offer it as a paradigm of hope, because the world right now is not in a good place. The world is in a very, very precarious situation. And there are voices calling out for protest, war, revolution, attack, whatever people are. And I'm not saying that all of these things are necessarily wrong, but very often they're not coming out of that true authentic self, because the true authentic self does not seek to manipulate, control, or violate the other. It's divine. It is your unity and connection with God. It is the essence of God living in you and speaking through you. And I think Thomas Merton spoke of that part of us that could never be touched. It could never be harmed by anything in this world or within ourselves or in our personality. It is that untouched, luminous, shining light of divinity. And so if we're learning to be in touch with that self, if we're learning to be, and there's no one way to get there. Some people will say you should do transcendental meditation or mindfulness, or say the rosary, or do centering prayer, or any of those things. There's no shoulds with this. Each one of us will find the point of luminosity in our own way. I found mine primarily through deep listening to patients, and the intention being to be fully present with the other. And out of that deepening of capacity to be present with the other, what happened was that I became more and more in contact with the light within. I think particularly I was more exposed to that light during and after the time of the pandemic, because at that time the ego mind was very, very powerful at turning us against each other and judging. And I felt myself getting sucked into the polarizations of the pandemic. And then something happened. I don't know what it was, but I suddenly became consciously aware that it was noise, just noise, and that all there were around me were innocent beings who are confused and in pain and suffering, and so lashing out and judging and attacking and being horrible. And I think there were times when I got into that realm as well, but I realized that this was a completely inauthentic and destructive self, and this is the false ego self that is actually destroying the world, ruining the world, ruining our individual lives and ruining our communities. And we need to find a way not to allow that part of us to grasp us. So, whatever we need to do, whether it's times of silence or deep listening to others, making contact with that true self is an imperative now, I think. And if we are in our true self when we are in dialogue with others, something happens that is magical. Something happens that's magical. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be some kind of angel of light that won't challenge or even kind of confront the negativity of others, but it doesn't come from an energy of ego, mind, and self. It comes from something other, and it's coming from that good place, because you don't come away from it feeling the sense of unease and dis-ease for having spoken a truth. So I'm sharing this with you because we need this consciousness of light now to permeate into the world through us, okay? And whether you're religious or not doesn't really matter. Are you open? Are you willing to come with empty hands and empty heart, with nothingness to the world? And I mean emptiness and nothingness, because that's what we need to do, I think. And it's what now, today's my 60th birthday, and I really feel the deep desire to become a parent to the world. I'm not a biological parent, and that's fine. I never really wanted to be a biological parent. And being gay in many ways kind of made that not possible anyway. But the desire to be a parent to the world, to be one who is in relationship to others, in parentes, is, I want to be my gift for the world for the last decade or two of my life, however long I might have or not have. That really is the desire that I have, is to be that. We can, by being in our true self, in our transformed self, be like the great figures of deep knowledge and truth and wisdom, like Siddhartha, and like Jesus, and like Mary Magdalene, and like Thomas Merton and Teresa of Avila, and Ananda Mayima, and others. We can become that true self in the world that diffuses the darkness and lets the luminosity, the clear light of divinity, to shine into this world. So that's really my aim for the next part of my life, however long or short it may be, to do that. Erickson, who was a psychoanalyst, Erik Erikson, who was a psychoanalyst, who formulated the first, no, it wasn't the first, Jung did as well. He formulated, as well as Carl Jung did, a developmental trajectory for the entire span of the human life. Most developmental psychologists and psychiatrists throughout the ages from Freud onwards only covered the infancy, childhood, and adolescent years. But both Carl Jung and Erik Erikson formulated a trajectory that covered the whole lifespan. And Erikson spoke about the final section of our life as being a stage called integrity versus despair, in which the human person is trying to make sense of the experience of their life, to see whether that will bring them into a sense of integrity, that my life had meaning and was well lived, or into a sense of despair, it's been meaningless and purposeless and without purpose, without meaning. Now, I think what Erickson was unveiling there was a state of consciousness that we can enter into at the end of life. But I think it's a false state of consciousness, to be honest with you. There's nothing to be despondent about, however much we may believe that we have messed up the life cycle. Because within the darkness, there is always fragments of light, and those lights very often outshine the density of the darkness. And so when I've sat with people who have been in the despair angle of their life, I might ask them again, from what I would call my true self, I might have asked them questions about something that they did in their life, something that they might not think very much of, and then somehow the light within me picks out the pieces of solid gold within that story. And then I might share with them what that story sounds like to me. And sometimes people can take it. And if they can take it, you're actually helping them to recognize that they are fundamentally a divine being. I mean, I would, as therapists, would never say that to someone who had no religious upbringing. But you're helping them to recognize that they are a divine being, that there is something that is indefeatable in them, and that no matter how much morass they've had to sort of navigate themselves through, that there are golden, diamond, luminous lights, shards of beautiful light. And that's a great service to people to be able to do that. We're living in a culture run by the ego, dominated by people who have been influenced by evil, and I will say that, by evil, who want to keep us in a state of amnesia to who we really are, that don't want us to recognize the goodness of who we truly are, that work through the structures and systems of society in a sense to keep us in a place of second guessing ourselves, not valuing the truth of who we truly are, and becoming that light which we really are. And I think the days for that dark, I'm going to use the word cabal because it's the closest word I can think of to describe them, because they're deluded beings that have failed to see the light in themselves. They don't recognize it. There's so much kind of calcification built around them, their hearts, that they can't see it. And for them, they want to calcify every other heart as well, usually because of greed, control, power, sadism. When you've got everything, you don't really have much to entertain you. So being sadistic can be another thrill. These people, broken as they are, cannot resist the light that shines in you. It demolishes the destruction that they cause in others, literally. When you radiate the self that is divine in you into the lives of others, when you're able to stop and suspend you for a moment and allow yourself to enter into that place of being, you radiate light, and that light then demolishes the darkness that they're bringing, or the calcification that they're bringing to the world. So we are living in a very, very difficult time right now, and I think we are living in what we might call an apocalyptic time, where that which needs to be revealed is being revealed. And I don't mean apocalypse as in fire and brimstone and death and destruction. I'm talking about revelation. Apocalypse means to reveal that which is hidden. And in many ways, what we're seeing now with the kind of madness of certain world leaders, I'm not going to start naming people here, but there are many of them who are in a sense, living in the calcification of the heart, that their calcification is stopping them from being able to be in collaboration and unity with themselves and others, because of fear and because of narratives that if I don't control everything, if I don't domineer everything, if I don't control the minds and hearts of others and the bodies of others and destroy others, as we're seeing in Gaza, because that's an extreme manifestation of that false self at work in the world, they can't access that light, and so we need to radiate that light on their behalf into the world, because we can really change everything. I'm convinced of that. So listen to others, meditate, pray, be in that self that is beautiful and true and real. It's not difficult. It's not some kind of nirvana or like some of these gurus talk about, these brilliant spiritual awakenings when they say, I am awake. We're awake all the time. We just go in and out of awakeness and sleeping. What we can do is we can learn to be a bit more extensively in the awake stage. We don't have to be a guru. We don't have to be a super person or someone that meditates for hours and hours a day. We are that which we were created to be, and nothing else. And we do not need special gurus or special religious leaders or people like that to tell us that. There are some religious leaders in the world who are completely in contact with the light, completely and utterly. Thich Nhat Hanh was one of them, and so referencing him and going to his light is important. Pope Francis, in the more latter years of his life, as he approached his ascension to papacy, became connected to that light, and that's why his papacy has mainly shone light into the world. So there are people of all traditions and no traditions, and even people that don't believe in God but believe in the goodness of what it means to be a human being and to reduce suffering and inequality in the world. Those people are shining that light as well. So I'm not going to talk anymore. That's just really my sharing for today. This is my gift to you for my 60th birthday. Take from it what you think might be good. If there's nothing in it that you find good, fine. If there's something in there, I'll be really pleased. So blessings to you all, and lots of love, and a huge hug from my heart to yours. And my divinity speaks to your divinity, which is the oneness that connects us all and has always connected us. We've always been part of that oneness. Okay, namaste. Love you all. Bye-bye.